Welcome back to the Vault with Wayne Gorman. So today, this video is going to be around awareness. So I've had a question from somebody that's watched the video that I did on Ricky Hatton. If you haven't seen the video, subscribe to my channel and you'll find that I think it was my last video. And you'll be able to watch it there on my thoughts on his suicide. I did say in that video that if I knew Ricky personally and he was willing to engage, then there's no doubt in my mind that he would still be alive if I'd have spoken to him. So I think after this person's watched that video, they've thought, well, hang on, you're saying that a lot of people aren't aware, and then they take their own lives as a result of it. So they're not aware of their internal suffering as to what exactly is going on. They become confused, then they take their own life. So the question was, how can somebody raise their awareness so they are able to ask questions and learn more about themselves? So what I take from that is, going back to the video I made on Ricky Hatton, he wouldn't have fully understood what was going on at the time when he took his own life. He'd have been confused. So it's not easy for me to answer these questions like straight off the cuff, but that's literally what I'm doing. Because I keep saying it because it's true that I don't script my videos. So that's why I pause, and that's why I'm looking up and I'm thinking and I'm trying to process the answer. So I'll have the question that somebody's asked me, but I could sit here for hours thinking about how I'm going to answer it, and I'd just be going round and round in my mind with, oh, would I say this, would I say that, overcome to this, come to that. So basically all I do is I get a wash, get changed, I roll the camera and I'm straight into it. That was the question. How can somebody raise their levels of awareness if they're suffering with the mental health to enable them to ask questions to help themselves? That's kind of where we're going with this. It's a good question. I'll say that. So the first thing that I would look at is, what is awareness? So if there's a lack of it, what's in its place if awareness isn't there? So when someone's suffering with the mental health, as their levels of suffering increase, they think less clearly. So they're not able to comprehend exactly what's going on. And as the suffering increases and goes up in magnitude, unfortunately, their judgment becomes more and more clouded and they get more and more doubtful, more and more confused. And that's why they end up where they end up. And it's a vicious circle, because as they're trying to climb out of it, they find that it just keeps getting worse. So how do you combat that? How do you come out of a depression? How do you come out of an anxious state? How do you start processing exactly what's going on? So the first thing that you need in order to start becoming more aware is understanding what you're already aware of. Because the more you tell yourself something like, I don't understand, I'm not aware, I don't know what it is I'm supposed to do, the more the suffering increases, because you're becoming more self-absorbed as that process is going on. And then you then beat yourself up thinking, I must and I need to sort this out. And I liken it to like quicksand. The more you struggle, the more you sink. And that is how it works. How low you go is all dependent. So awareness is, this is all my take on it. You know, I'm not getting a dictionary out and looking up the definition. Awareness is when the mind is in a state of knowing. So not being aware is going to be the opposite, which is a state of not knowing. Now, when somebody's in a state of not knowing, they have questions they don't have answers to. So that is doubt. Doubt causes a lot of suffering. If it gets a grip, it's the worst, as far as I'm concerned, mental hindrance that I know of, to cause damage to your psychology and your physical self. It tops depression and anxiety quite easily. And the worst type of combination is when you're suffering with low self-esteem and you're depressed, or you're suffering with low self-esteem and you're anxious. So the first thing that is required in order to become more aware is to look at what's right under your nose. So in other words, if you're suffering with low mood, it's not difficult to think, right, I'm depressed. So you're aware of that. So generally people know when they're either sulking or they're bored, or they're suffering from irritability, or they're angry, or they're in a state of rage. So all these kind of, I don't know what to call them, mental phenomena, if you like, all these sorts of mental phenomena that come from that type of mental patterns of behaviour, all fall into the category of depression. So boredom, if you're bored and you're showing a lack of interest, because obviously, like I've said in other videos, the counter to depression is interest. So if somebody is depressed and they start developing an interest, that will then start to dilute the depression, even if you're interested in the fact that you're depressed. So when people are telling themselves they're not aware and they don't understand, you've got to look at how true that is. So people are aware of when they're suffering with depression a lot of the time. And if they're not, then look at all the things that I've just said. Are you bored? Are you irritable? Are you angry? Are you raging mad? You know, so all these are on that scale of depression. And if the answer is yes to any of those, and that you have low mood with a lack of interest, then you're likely suffering with depression. Whether it's short term or if it's more long term, it's been going on for a long time, then whatever the word the doctors give it, clinical depression, or, you know, it used to be called manic depression, I think, at the end of the day, you're depressed. So I wouldn't get too bogged down in what the NHS call it. So yeah, you can become aware that you are aware of the fact that you're depressed. Now, then you've got anxiety, which is worry. So people know when they're worrying. So you're inquiring into these sorts of things. So am I worried? What am I worried about? What's the type of thinking that I'm employing? Oh, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. And your mind's all over the place. So you're agitated with it as well, bouncing around. Well, the counter to that is happiness. So when you're content, you're not worrying. But I don't want to drop too far into all the resolutions for all these things. I want to try and, I have to do it a little bit because I'm talking about awareness. So if you're anxious, so some people will then get things developing like social anxiety, they don't want to go out, etc., etc. But people know when they're worried. So an individual that's suffering with the mental health can remind themselves that they are aware of these things in their psychology. I know when I'm worrying, I know when I'm depressed, okay? This is bringing awareness to these states of mind, because these are the things that cause most people problems, excluding mental conditions like schizophrenia and things like that. We're talking now basic psychology. I'm depressed, I'm anxious, or the stealth hindrance, which is low self-esteem, and that's doubting. Essentially, you're doubting yourself, you're doubting your ability, and if you've got a lot of questions that you want answers to, then you're in a state of doubt. So I don't know what I need to do here, I don't know what I need to do that, I don't understand this, I don't understand that. This is all doubting. So if you're already suffering with depression, you've got low mood, or you're anxious, and then you start doubting as well, that's a natural progression, is to try and understand what's going on with the other two. So I don't know how to alleviate my symptoms when it comes to being depressed. Do I need medication? Do I need, CBT? What is it that's required? I need help. Same with anxiety. That's going to be pretty much the blueprint for that as well. So low self-esteem, you want to focus on that rather than the other two. That causes more damage, and that's what comes after, normally, the other two. So somebody will start off with low mood, feeling depressed, not happy. They might have bouts of anxiety as well. You might gravitate towards one or the other. You're more of an anxious person than you are a depressed person. You might do both intermittently, switch between the two, whatever. But doubting is what then comes after that. So now I'm doubting all the time because I don't know what to do in order to resolve the problems that I've got. So I'm broken. I'm never going to be able to fix myself. I don't know what to do. I can't get any help. Nobody understands me. I spoke to the doctors, the clinicians, the psychologists. I've had CBT. It hasn't worked. In fact, it's made me worse. And nobody cares. And nobody understands. So they feel lost. And so that's how the suffering increases. That will cloud the individual's judgment further, and they become less and less aware by telling themselves they're not aware. So in this sense, you are what you think. If you keep saying to yourself, I don't understand, then that's what you'll become. And the suffering will increase because it's all about the individual being self-absorbed. So to become more aware is to understand the questions that you're always saying that you need answers to. What are the questions that you're asking? So I don't understand how to resolve my depression. Right. Well, if you're looking at just that alone, then it would be developing an interest. And it doesn't matter in what, but that's the counter to it. And as you start developing interest in things, as hard as it is to motivate yourself, for me, it was becoming interested in what was going on in my psychology because I was determined that I was going to recover from it. So, yeah, ill will, it's pushing things away all the time, hating on things all the time, whether you're hating your thoughts, whether you're hating yourself, whether you're hating other people, whether you hate your job, whether you hate members of your family. It's all the same thing. Go away from me, want to be on my own, I hate you. So it's reversing that. And even if you can't do it externally, so you're stuck in your job and you're stuck with your family and you're living with those, you can internally do the work to understand your hatred towards people or things or yourself and look at whether or not that behaviour is benefiting you. So if the answer's no, then we can reverse it by showing an interest. Just by showing an interest, it will start diluting it. That will make you more aware. So that's depression pretty much covered. With anxiety, it's the same thing. What am I worrying about? So worry is normally manifested in the future, but you can worry about things that you've done in the past, which people call regret. At the end of the day, oh, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that, and you're worrying about it. But if you're looking into the future about what I need to do in the future in order to help myself, and you're worrying about it, then I know a lot of people say, "Oh, bring yourself into the moment and bring yourself into the now and try and be in the physical body and get out your head and all this." And I don't agree with any of. I do agree with it to a degree, but what I would say is you want to become aware of what's going on in your psychology first and foremost. So, um, it's it's unreasonable to think that you're going to all of a sudden become happy if you're suffering with depression. So it's very difficult to get a balance between all these things, like tackling depression, tackling anxiety. What I found is that if you only look at one, give yourself one job to do, right? Because it can be a mammoth task to go, right, I need to develop an interest, I need to displace that, I need to be more happy, and you're trying to force happiness then that's not there, and you're kidding yourself. You want to become aware of your current state of unhappiness. I am unhappy, I am worrying, and I know I'm worrying, and I know what I'm worrying about, and now I need to look at whether or not that's helping me, because you'll only employ a behaviour mentally that you think is going to work. So when you unlearn that and think, right, okay, well, by worrying, I'm not getting anywhere, it's not making me any better, or by being depressed, it's not helping me, it's not helping me psychology at all. But if you're giving yourself one thing to do, it would be focus on your confidence. So as you become more confident, and as I've said, it'll start rooting with anxiety and depression, and then the low self-esteem comes after, and that's where it gets heavy and you start really suffering so that you can't see what's going on. Because before that, you had a chance of seeing what was going on. When you're depressed, when you're anxious, but then the doubting comes in, and now we're in trouble mentally, potentially, because now we're questioning everything and we don't understand anything and we're confused. So it's reversing that process to come back to a state where you can deal with the anxiety or you can deal with the depression, because you've got self-esteem on your side and you've got a little bit more clear thinking, and dealing with the doubt alone will automatically displace to a large degree both anxiety and depression. So what I was doing was concentrating on one, because I learned pretty quickly through suffering quite a lot that it was too much trying to take on anxiety, depression, and then figure out what else was going on. So I just thought, right, I need to stop the doubting and the questioning and the beating myself up, so I can get to a level where I've got a little bit more energy, where I can understand what's going on, because at the moment I'm confused. So after you come out of confusion, so you realise that doubting all the time is not working, and you start coming out of confusion, then you become aware of the doubts. And as you become aware of what you're doubting, you then start being able to go, right, okay, well, I know doubting's not working, so now I need to understand why I'm doubting. So you understand how doubt works, and I've done a video on that and how perfection comes from it and all these other things. So what I'll do is divert your attention over to that video to watch that if you want to know about doubt. So I did do a video on typically those three amigos, if you like, depression, anxiety, and doubt, low self-esteem. So all the answers are in there for that. So you become more aware when you stop doubting, when you see that doubting doesn't work. And you also understand that at that stage, it's thinking that there is a problem that is the problem. So when you learn to undo that behaviour mentally, you'll get some sort of relief. And as a result of that, you'll become more clearer in your thinking, And then you'll be aware that you're depressed, you'll be aware that you're anxious from time to time, and we've got more energy now to invest in, okay, well, what's going on there? And you can unpack those ones. But it's done with a mindset that is not, I must sort this problem out. It's the psychology is, okay, thinking there's a problem is the problem. So I don't need to keep telling myself that I've got a problem. I don't need to keep telling myself that I'm broken. I don't need to keep telling myself that I'm never going to be able to come out of this. I don't need to keep telling myself that I've been like this from when I was born and I've got problems, right? Because this is all what comes from it. And I don't need to keep telling myself that I haven't got enough time left in my life, depending upon how old you are, to reverse the process. Because all this is neurosis, because that's what will come from it. So once you get into those patterns of thinking, it perpetuates, and all the stories that come from it are just madness, which is what madness is. It's believing in your own thinking, believing in your own neurosis, your own neurotic thoughts. And if that goes on for long enough, if the suffering is that great, then there is potential for things like schizophrenia and things like that to develop. Well, we don't want to go there because, the voices in your head and, whispering and all this sort of stuff, it's no fun, So anyone that bigs up being mad, and says, yeah, it's great, and that annoys me, to be honest with you. When I think about it, you can probably see it in my face now. I'm a bit angry about that. When you get the likes of like Salvador Dali, who, he was a painter, he was an artist, realism or whatever it was. God knows what he did. I can't even remember the names of these things that he did. But I've got a few pictures and I like the artwork, but the eccentric sort of, with the moustache and opening the eyes wide and pretending he was crazy. He wasn't crazy, because anyone that is crazy doesn't promote the fact they're crazy, because it's no fun being slightly mad or mad. So yeah, going off on a bit of a tangent there, but don't pay any attention to that. So if anyone's glorifying madness, saying they're mad and laughing and pretending they're mad, they're not, right? Because that no such thing would happen. It's all bravado. It's all a blag. It's all what they like to be seen as to other people, and it's very childish. So you'll start becoming more aware about what's going on as the suffering levels decrease. And that will be done systematically through understanding how doubt works. Like I say, watch the video. Once you start coming out of you'll start coming out of confusion to begin with gentle inquiry. So that's not the I must and I need to do this, I need to sort the problem out. It's more, hang on a minute, what's going on here? How the hell have I got myself into this state, right? Because this is pretty messy. So a gentle inquiry into what is going on is what is required to begin with, to start your journey on becoming more aware. Like I say, being aware of what you're already aware of, but you're telling yourself you're not anymore. So you're depressed, you're anxious, and most importantly, you're suffering with low self-esteem because you keep telling yourself the story that you don't understand anything, which perpetuates it. So reversing that process, what do I understand? Building your levels of confidence. What do I know that I've got the energy to do? And I might have said this in other videos, I don't know, I've made about 28 now, 29, can't remember the number, but it's doing tasks that you know that you'll be able to complete. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's washing the dishes, hoovering up, dusting a shelf, right? That is something that I said I was going to do, and I've done it. And I've done it to a good standard. And if that's all you can do on that day, you've done a job, right? And now we're starting to reaffirm that we are capable of doing things, because you're always telling yourself the story you're not when you get to that level. So I can do something, and I have done something, and I followed through with it. And you start diluting this terrible psychology, this dark energy, right, where there isn't even a chink of light, And it's like, okay, that's another little drop that I've just added. And you do that systematically, just managing your expectations on what you can do and what you're capable of doing. So all these little things will add up. Slowly but surely, you'll come out of confusion. The doubting will go by the wayside ever so slightly. You'll fall back into it and then come back out again. Fall back into it and then come back out again. And that's the process. And then you start looking at, okay, I've still got low mood. What's going on there? Right, I'm hating on things. So what am I hating it for? You know, what is it? So I'd need more specifics on what people are gravitating towards and what they're hating on in order to be able to help. But that's it in a nutshell. And with your anxious thinking, you don't need to really deal that much with anxiety and with depression if you tackle low self-esteem, because they fall away, literally, as you become more confident. So that's how I would go about as a starting point of becoming more aware in order to help yourself. And if you feel the need to always ask questions, if you've got someone that knows what they're talking about and you've got someone suffering and they're constantly asking questions, what do we need to do here? What do we need to do there? It would all depend on what they were asking, but what is evident is that individual's in a state of doubt. So it would be, why do you need to know the answer to that? Because what comes with doubting is a lot of investigation, mental investigation, and too much investigation and pouring too much energy into it only makes the doubting worse. So that's why I say it's gentle inquiry to understand what's going on. And if somebody was to say to me, what do I need to do in order to get well? I would say, why are you asking the question? So there's an assumption that you're not well. Okay, so at the minute you're not firing on all cylinders, but it's not the end of the world, right? You can get through this and sort this out. So in a video, it's hard to do because I've got no one asking me a question so I can feed back. And as I've said before, I have to answer all my own questions, if you like. But I've got that question there, and that's how I'd start becoming more aware so that you can ask questions. There's nothing wrong with questions, but it's with the right effort and with the right inquiry into the right area and all that. You could speak to somebody that knows the territory of the evils of the mind, of when it gets a grip and how it works. So talking to people that know what they're talking about, becoming aware of what you're already aware of. So you know you're suffering with depression, you know you're suffering with anxiety, but not a lot of people understand low self-esteem and they're suffering with it when they are. So they're doubting all the time and they don't know. And that's the one that gets most people, is the doubting. I don't understand what I need to do. And then they keep telling themselves a story, I need to be more confident. Well, by saying that, you're not confident. So if you keep telling yourself you need to be something, I need to be more confident, you're then reaffirming the fact that you're not confident. So that doesn't work. So that's why I say pick tasks that you know that you can do. So you know what the likely outcome's going to be, because the way doubt works is it's always asking a question and not knowing what the outcome's going to be. So it's reversing that. And if you set yourself a task, dead simple, dusting a shelf in the house, you're clear that you're going to do that, and you know that you're going to be able to do it. So you can't beat yourself up afterwards. And that's why I'm saying manage your expectations. You need to set your stall out so you know that you're going to be able to do it, right? I'll be able to dust this shelf for sure. I've got the energy to do it and I know how to do it, and you do it. And that's how to start recovering from the constant doubting. So it doesn't matter what you choose, but just whatever it is, know that it's achievable and that the outcome is likely going to be, I'm going to do the job. And even if you got up and you wiped half the shelf and you thought, you know what, I can't do this, right? Fine, you've wiped half of it. Lie down, right, and wipe the other half after, when you've got the energy and you've still done the job. you know. So this will raise your levels of awareness. It'll make you more aware of what you're already aware of. And then any questions that you do ask will be coming from a better place, because you'll be clearer about what you want to understand. And that is how to come out of that. So half an hour video, bit long, bit of a babble, I know. So apologies for that. It's going to take me longer to upload it as well. But that's how to become more aware of what's going on in here, right? Because that's where the damage is done. So for now, I'll leave it there. But any more questions that anyone's got, I'll post a video. I'll do it as quick as I can as well, because I like to get things done, so people have got the information, and at least there's something for them to get the teeth into. And even if I don't cover everything in the video, and I don't, because it's unlikely that I'll get every little aspect and I'll say everything that I wanted to say. So I might end this video, I should have said this, or I should have said that, or that would have been a better way of putting that so people could understand it. That's going to happen because they're not scripted. So I don't have that expectation on myself, and that's why I just let the camera roll and say what I say, and you get what you get. It is what it is. So until next time, I'll speak to you later.